Podcast, episode number 86. You're joining us for another fantastic show as we round up all the gaming and Stadia news for the longest running podcast this side of Google Maps. That's the Sounds of Stadia podcast. You're joining myself, Chris, alongside my lovely two co-hosts, the man of many pixels, Mr. Richie.
Hello, everybody.
And
you got the order
no,
there,
I didn't. I'm just trying something different. Episode 86,
okay,
we're coming up to 100, and I'm just mixing things up a little bit.
Yeah.
And the Mandalorian above him, the techie teacher himself, Mr. Tom.
Yeah, I see where you were going with that. I see why there was the slight hesitation there now. Fair play.
We called you out on that one.
All right, well, we can just start again. Hello, Internet, and welcome to the Sounds of Stadia. No, we won't do it all again. It's too much of my Sunday. But Tom, you have a lovely helmet there, which you got for your birthday. I think you need to show it off for our fan base out there.
I absolutely do. Yeah.
Look at that.
I am such a child at heart. Like I think we can all say to a certain extent that we all are. You know,
it's beautiful.
It is such a well-made helmet. This is as well. Highly recommend anybody who's interested in like Star Wars collectibles and stuff. Check out the Hasbro Black series because this is it is quality stuff. You pay a little bit more than you'd probably expect, just over £100, but you know, it's beautiful, and the detail inside as well is, you know, it's top notch. It's not just rubbish inside. It's actually fully fleshed out lights and everything.
Is it made of real Beskar?
If Beskar is a type of plastic, then sure.
Vacuum formed Beskar.
Because it looks like it's got a bit of weight behind it, so it's comfortable.
It is actually very comfortable. It's well supported inside. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Good.
So for audio listeners, Tom got a Mandalorian helmet for his birthday. And you should check out youtube.com/Sounds of Stadia, where you can see it in all its shiny glory. But you're not here for that today. You're here for the Sounds of Stadia podcast. We've got a great show lined up. We're going to be talking about all of the Ubisoft earnings reports. Lots of stuff trickled out. It's a very Ubisoft-centric episode, actually. We've got some new games announced and coming to Stadia, thanks to the community community boggling?
Community bog.
The community boggling who sits there on the website and shares his stories from his rock. No, we've got the community blog, in fact, gave us the details of that. And we've also got the exciting news that crossplay came to Stadia, albeit briefly on one particular title. But before we delve into all of that exciting news for the week, we'd just like to remind you to support the channel by clicking that like button down below, click the bell icon, and hit join if you do feel so inclined, because we've got a great membership program where over 40 of you are supporting us over there from as little as 99p. You get exciting things like badges next to your name in the chat. You get exciting access to stickers, access to premium, exciting, exclusive content. We've also got, there's 2 episodes of our first looks for different games that are exclusive to our members right now. So do click join, and you'll get things like SideQuest early as well, up to 6 days early, Richie. We've decided it's not 5 days, it's 6 days.
Yeah, it's usually 6 days.
It goes up the same day we record the episode. You can't get much hotter off the press than that, gentlemen. But before we get into all that, let's look a little bit of housekeeping for the week. We've had a busy week of game streams over on Stadia because we don't just do a weekly podcast, we also play Stadia games. And some big titles dropped this past week. Myself and Richie jumped into the scary world of Resident Evil Village.
Okay.
And we met the big lady, Tom. Went on some adventures. We met some of her daughters. In fact, we know all the whole host of characters now, Richie.
Yeah, we've met them all.
I believe
you meet them all fairly early in the game.
Yeah, you get kind of like a grand introduction to them all, and then they all go their separate ways. For Ethan Winters, one Ethan Winters is in his mighty hands to go and explore and find out. So join us again this week. We've covered 2 episodes. A catch up now on the channel if you do wish to do so. But we're jumping in probably for a double bill this week again at some point, and we'll see how far we get. But Lady D, Tom, Lady D, there's more to her than meets the eye. We'll say that much. We'll say that much.
Okay.
But aside from Resident Evil, you two,
yes,
may have had a couple of. I can see your cheeky smiles there already. From what I understand and from what I've seen, you two opened up a bottle of red wine each this past Friday and dived into the exciting vineyard operation of 100 Days. Do you want to give us a rundown of one? how fun you found the game, and 2, how hungover you were the next day, Tom.
Yeah, that's the question right there, isn't it? Really? Yeah, 100 days. I think Richie and I, we could both say that we had a great time streaming it.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant community interaction there. We had a whole host of ideas for different names and labels that we should be putting on our bottles. We met most of the characters of the game, and then ran the vineyard into the ground. We ended up literally right on cue for us to finish. We bankrupted the business.
Yeah, it was like literally like Tom, as he's doing his outro, he's clicking through like next 10 and it bankrupted us.
So where did it all fall down?
Me and Tom running it while drinking wine. That's where it fell down.
Yeah. I think very early on I made a terrible decision to buy a shop, which I didn't need.
Right.
So I invested a lot of the initial earnings that you get when you pick up the vineyard. I spent a lot of it in areas where I probably shouldn't have done. I think I've got a good grasp of the game now as to how to make money fairly quickly.
Is it not drinking your own produce by any chance?
No, I think that was some of the fun stuff, really. But we really slept on white wine for a while, didn't we? We never got around to.
We were trying to get up and going because we were in debt because of the shop that we could never get the funds to get the field going.
Turns out you can't buy grapes if you don't have money.
Yeah.
I did notice at one point during the video you had like €1 to your name.
Yes, we did.
That was how fine of a line you were between going bankrupt for a long time.
Yeah.
That's how.
So
you
I
do
ended up drinking my sorrows away, and I can tell you for a fact that yesterday was a very difficult day for me. Very, very difficult. So I think Richie, you were doing all right, but
yeah, I ran a 5K.
Lucky you. I suffered until probably solid into the afternoon at least.
Wow, that's some good going though. Good stuff. Favorite name. I did enjoy some of the names the chat were throwing out for suggestions for bottles of wine. What was it? Resident Vintage.
Resident Vintage.
Yeah.
Sips of Stadia.
We had one of my favourite ones I think was 16 characters because it was purely the character limit.
Yeah. That one.
We had some brilliant ideas coming through. So thank you so much to everyone who tuned in with that.
I should say that 16 characters was inspired by the wine that Tom was drinking called 19 Crimes.
19 Crimes. Yeah, I've still got a bottle of red that I need to crack open and sample as well. But yeah, it looked like an absolute great time. One of the best moments I think I enjoyed watching it back was probably the logo creation and your decision to make an absolute like the shittest bottle possible for like value bargain bin pick up for $5 €5 bottle of wine. And the funniest thing of it all, it was the exact same batch that you guys put into your premium bottle. So don't trust these two, everybody out there. If Sounds of Stadia ever have a merch store selling wine, it's the same stuff. Go for the cheapest.
Yeah, I think the cheapest stuff actually sold for more anyway.
Hey, everyone loves a bargain. Everyone loves a bargain, especially if it tastes as good as the premium stuff. That's brilliant. But 100 days available now, of course, on Stadia. It came out on Friday, I believe, Thursday last week.
Thursday last week.
How did you find? You played the whole thing in mouse and keyboard, right, Tom? How did you find actually having a Stadia game that was kind of more committed to the mouse and keyboard aspect as opposed to controller? Was it nice to have? Nice to see?
Yeah, I think I'd always prefer to play simulator type games like that with a mouse and keyboard. It just feels more. It feels more natural to me if I were playing a game like The Sims or if I was doing a roller coaster tycoon type game, for example. I'd probably be more inclined to actually be using a mouse and keyboard just because I feel like with that isometric type of view, you've just got more control of where things go. Whereas when you're using an analog stick, when you've got that isometric sort of angled view, you don't know whether the right's going to take you to the right, up diagonally, or down diagonally. So I just sort of feel like it's more instinctive to play it in that sort of fashion, really. Be interested to know what people thought of it with the controller, though, because I've still yet to try it. I did say I was going to do on stream, but wine sort of took priority, should we say. I didn't have enough hands.
Exactly, stuff. But no, I think it's great to see that's come. I think all three of us have agreed we'd love to see Stadia utilise the mouse and keyboard accessibility a little bit more and maybe bring some kind of ports across. I've been shouting out on Twitter a good couple times for Frontier development. I think Planet Coaster and Jurassic World Evolution, those style of games, which do have console variants, would be the perfect get for Stadia because it gives the options for the player, whereas you wouldn't traditionally have that on a PlayStation or Xbox because you're beholden to the controller rules. Fantastic stuff, though. So, yeah, look out for more live streams in the future. Resident Evil Village, in particular, sponsored by Resident Vintage 2021 special bottled produce from our good friends Tom and Richie here.
It wasn't
Exciting stuff.
Wine. It got like 52.
Really acidic.
yeah.
Really acidic, I've heard. But, first of all, gentlemen, that's it for housekeeping. So let's dive into the thick, deep news stories of the week with the
Super sexy special Stadia Story segment, aka The
News. What sponsored news segment wine would you like to have this week if you had to pick another bottle from your collection?
We'll go with the Sips of Stadia Premium this week.
Or was it Sips of Stadia P because you couldn't fit premium on the label?
P. Sips of Stadia P. There we
That's
go.
right. So
P
it
stands for premium.
is that because it's bottled
Not
piss?
piss water.
Yeah. Piss Fasser
That was the
from...
same one. That was the same one as the cheap wine that we saw. That was the original bottle. The
Beautiful
Stadia
stuff.
Premium.
Beautiful stuff. You can find that now in the description, the link to our wine cellar below. This week's news is actually brought to you by one of our new members, Louise, who did join us on, I think it was the Resident Evil stream, Richie. He joined us as one of our members, just like you can remember. So do click join. Check out the perks that you get below on the YouTube channel. We appreciate your love and support. So thank you, Louise, and everybody else who joined us as a member. First news story of the week, gentlemen. This is a very Ubisoft-centric episode. As we said, Ubisoft had one of their many, many earnings calls, being a publicly traded company, and it's great for leaks. Now, a good friend, Duncan, and the team over at cloudywithachanceofgames.com were listening in on that earnings call. Not actually like listening in that hacked Ubisoft's call and they were listening in with their earphones. They just covered the news. And within that, we got quite a lot of stuff, very Stadia-centric and very, very good news for Stadia. It's some things we've probably anticipated and wanted for a while, but to see them actually publicly shared in an earnings call is really, really good for Stadia going forward into the future. So, first up, Resident Evil. Why did I say Resident Evil?
Resident Evil.
What? It's so much in my mind at the moment. Rainbow Six Siege. Is part of their title release schedule. So first quarter, April to June 2021. They've marked down a few games, but we'll break them down one by one. We've got Rainbow Six Siege. We've got For Honor, which is the biggest surprise to me, and we've got Uno's 50th anniversary version, because Uno will never die. It will just live on and get iterations time after time after time. They released them with the kind of the platform entries as well at the same time. A couple of other things in there. I think some DLC for Watch Dogs and stuff as well. Division expansion, Season 6. But I think the biggest thing for us is that we've had it rated by the ESRB in the past and then nothing really ever came of it. To see it here in the earnings call is fantastic. So Rainbow Six Siege, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Not that far. I feel like I'm saying Siege wrong every time I say it now. Finally coming, and hopefully not too long. If it's first quarter 2021, that means by the end of June, which is next month, we should point out, we should have Rainbow Six.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
Ooh.
I think definitely.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I was going to say, I think it's actually timed quite nicely with their next big update for Rainbow Six as well. Sorry, for Siege, I should say, because Rainbow Six is the franchise. But this is the kind of game that we've been talking about and hyping about for Stadia for quite some time. So it's nice to know that Ubisoft are now actually going to go and do this. You know, we've been talking about things like Apex, we've been talking about things like Fortnite and so on. The reality is, you know, Siege falls very well into not so much the sort of Battle Royale category, but very much that sort of almost, you know, free to play with operators that get rotated in and out. You can purchase new operators and so on as well. I think it's very much the kind of game we would love to see and are going to be very grateful to have on the platform now.
I'd say it's one of the multiplayer games that defined the last generation of consoles. The fact that it pretty much existed for the entire duration of the PlayStation 4 era.
It falls into that category of like competitive shooters, I suppose, in a way as well. Team-based shooters like Overwatch as well, which we've, you know, I've got quite a history of enjoying that game. So getting Siege is again, it's going to be quite nice, particularly if we do also get cross-play as well as part of that to support. You know, playing with people on other platforms.
That was my
Siege
follow-up.
is actually very playable offline, though. Like,
yes.
with just luck, we thought, well, I think Chris and I and a few others have just played Siege against bot, and it is actually still fun.
Yeah, that's what we would probably do to start off with as part of a first look, I'd imagine. They play it with bots, but that leads into my first question, what you alluded to there, Tom, with this launching by the end of June, Siege we'd imagine is going to truly benefit from having crossplay.
Yeah.
And then that kind of also ties in with my second follow-up question, which is Ubisoft Plus rolling out globally. Do we think they're both going to hit at the same time? They're arguably one of the biggest titles that's kept alive, and then also Ubisoft Plus going global.
I think it's interesting you say that about Ubisoft Plus, because I know there's sort of a deal in place with Ubisoft Plus on other platforms where if you are a player of Siege, you also get, with an Ubisoft Plus subscription, you get access to everything within the game as part of it. So, you know, all of the operators, or essentially almost like the premium passes that you get within the game, all come packaged as part of Ubisoft Plus, which I think is a great incentive for somebody who does play a game like Siege there, as well as, you know, might dabbling with other games like Watch Dogs, with Assassin's Creed and so on. It would be very nice to see that we get the global release of Ubisoft Plus, because we already know that you can access the US version through a VPN at the moment, pretending that you are in the US, and pay in British currency, in Canadian dollars, whatever it is you want to go for. So it seems at this point really that maybe they're just trying to flesh out the legality of it in different countries and just get some deals in place, rather than the actual sort of server side aspects of it. I think Ubisoft Plus is pretty much raring to go internationally.
Yeah, definitely. I've not heard any complaints from our friends over the other side of the Atlantic and over in the States that saying it performs poorly or anything like that. So I don't think Ubisoft have an issue with the technology. It's just a case of probably getting them legal boxes checked so they can push it. Maybe that's why they initially planned to release it as a beta in the States only. Just, we've got everything in place for the US, but we haven't got everything in place for other countries. Let's just push it. If we call it a beta, then it just buys us time.
Well,
but actually, that's Ubisoft Plus is why I wasn't surprised by For Honor coming.
Yeah, it's just more to their library. It actually harks really well to one of the questions somebody asked in our Discord. I think it was Bethlehem Plays Games in our Discord chat, which if you're not part of, by the way, if you do listen to us every week and you think, actually, I'd like to talk more and expand on these conversations, check out our Discord. The link's below in the description. Us three are in there, along with many people as part of the Sounds of Stadia community. If you've got questions, you want to just chat a little bit more, awesome group of people, always open. I think chat happens practically daily. Yeah, come say hi. And the question was posed, Ubisoft leaning so heavily into these cloud platforms. I think Ubisoft know exactly what they're doing with their library of games and their catalogue, and they are just essentially building the foundations to create an influx of cash from a platform that doesn't require a middleman as such. So we know with Stadia, you can just have Ubisoft Plus without a Stadia Pro subscription. So essentially, Ubisoft have a platform here. You can subscribe to play just their games, just their library, with nothing. You don't need to buy a console, which is, funnily enough, the argument we've been making for Stadia for so long. But Stadia does, in a way, just negate that console price input. And if you're a big fan of Ubisoft and you love half of the games, titles like For Honor and such, that's huge. And I think Ubisoft know what this roadmap looks like. And I think, as a business, I think it's crazy how well they've been ran, especially with that takeover that was going to happen a few years back, and they managed to fight that off. And then now they're one of the most consistent, I think, AAA developers out there that run on such a large scale with such a variety of wealth. But then that leads into, I guess, next question, guys. For Honor, big surprise.
Yeah.
I know it has its like kind of seasons, and it's supported just like Siege has been. I think it's up to year 5 now, which is crazy. I remember playing the beta when that first launched. Big surprise for me coming to Stadia, this one, and I think it will need crossplay for the type of game it is. I don't think it has the oomph Rainbow Six comes with. It's more niche.
It's more of a niche. It's more niche, definitely. But it's nice to see that, although it is more niche, it does have a thriving community behind it. The fact that it is in year 5 at this point, year 6, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, as I said, I wasn't actually that surprised that it's coming to Stadia. I may have been surprised that it's coming so soon, but I think with the commitment for Ubisoft Plus to come to Stadia, I think everything that is on the console from Ubisoft is coming to Stadia. It's more of a case of when rather than if.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We definitely know that that relationship's been there for quite a while as well. And it's nice to see them continue to build on that because, clearly since the launch of Stadia, I suppose we've had so much love from Ubisoft that I think it's fair to say that Ubisoft, as far as developers go, have probably made the most money out of the platform so far, just because of, the sheer amount of games that are available, the sheer quality of the games, and also the fact that it is just continued support.
And Ubisoft actually had some simultaneous AAA releases on Stadia, where I don't think any of maybe a Square had anything that come out day and date, or is it just back part?
No, we had CD Projekt with Cyberpunk.
We got Avengers.
Capcom have recently.
Yeah, Avengers.
Yeah.
Outriders from Square as well.
I think we should steer clear of Outriders. Keep with the barge pole.
Well, in terms of support.
But I think
Yes.
Ubisoft have Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, and Immortals. They're three huge titles.
And we would have had Far Cry at this stage, and Riders Republic actually, if things had panned out. So it would have been huge. But this kind of all goes back to the conversation around Ubisoft seeing it as their own platform. We know Google said back in February they're going to leverage this with business partners and almost sell Stadia as an optional extra in a way. This is 100% what that looks like for Ubisoft, right? I'd imagine they supply the games, they're able to negotiate a bigger cut of that Ubisoft Plus subscription fee. Because you'd imagine if Google are just giving them Stadia and with no Stadia Pro required, Stadia must have a return on that fee instead. So it'd be funny enough to see Stadia make more money from the Ubisoft subscription than it does its own Pro subscription. But in a way, that just benefits both parties. So I think it's in Ubisoft's best interest to make their catalogue look as rich as possible, which will mean bringing older titles. I do think we'll see all the older Assassin's Creed games at some point as well. I do honestly think we'll see games like Anno, which I know a lot of the community shout about, saying, give us that PC variant. Anno, why do you want to see Anno, Richie? Why do you think that would be good?
Basically, what you've just touched on, this is a game that's currently just locked on PCs because of the style of game it is. It's kind of that Civ-style game. But I think it's perfect for Stadia, with Stadia being mouse and keyboard enabled. You can just, if you're into them, like management sims, there's one. I know. We know we've got Humankind coming.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's achievable.
Yeah.
Very achievable.
Exciting stuff. Did either of you two play For Honor, by the way? Have played For Honor back in the day?
No, I've never even touched it, which is, it seems very much my kind of game as well. I just never picked up on it. Very
intriguing gameplay style. The fact that it's first person, which is again not Ubisoft traditional classic, but you have to use the controller stick to block. So if someone attacks you from the left, you have to swipe left on the sticks to block to the left, block up above. And it actually mechanically it plays very different to any other first person game like that there is. Traditionally, obviously shooters, you're very much in control of where you're aiming, but this is you have to factor in a lot more things: block, guard, attack, lunge, all that kind of stuff. And the fact that it just takes all these different not mythologies, but cultures, I guess, in a way of like warfare. I think they introduced Japan was one of the latest ones, or medieval something. But essentially, it's Japanese, medieval, Huns, and then they've added other cultures in over time. And anything that's just got like a history of like warring adds them in. And again, seasonal content's been amazing. The support's been fantastic, and I haven't played it in years, so I'd be very intrigued to pick it up now and see how much it has changed. But there's not really anything like it out there, so I'm not surprised it's found its niche audience, because if you're the only one doing it right, you're the only place people go to.
True.
Final one from the earnings report then, just to wrap up. We couldn't leave this story without talking about Uno 50th anniversary. Has also been rated. We've already got Uno, right? Because we had the Immortals Phoenix Rising DLC come as well. Tom, you've got Uno, right?
Yes, I do.
Are you excited about the 50th anniversary, or is Uno kind of like a one-time purchase for you?
I think it's just I just see it as being yet another pack added into the game, where it's just going to be a skin and the likes rather than a standalone game. It could very well be a standalone game. I don't know. But again, it's just another deck of cards, isn't it, really?
What can you really change about Uno? The game's kind of defined.
I imagine they might make it.
This is what Uno is, then the video game version is just like, how do we put this card game into a video game? I don't think there's a lot you can do with it, really.
Yeah. And this kind of backs up that Ubisoft catalogue. Would they bother bringing another version of Uno over if it wasn't for having the full catalogue requirement there? I'd imagine this is an easy port, a card game. It's not exactly pushing the graphical boundary of video games that far. So this strikes me as another one. It's just a tick box in the catalogue to say, look, we've got it. It's on Ubisoft Plus. If you subscribe, here's another type of game you could play with your family. I think we've got Monopoly, of course, as well. So it's just, again, it's every single title I think will eventually trickle over. Interesting. Yeah. Which may mean we might get Prince of Persia once upon a time. We can all hope. We can all hope because it has been delayed.
I think the last version of Uno dates back to like 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So if the 50th anniversary edition is a new standalone, maybe they just decided it's time for a refresh of the IP, slight refresh of the IP, bring a new version.
Gonna reboot it. New characters.
Reboot Scrabble. Let's go.
It might even be a licensing thing. Like they might have to produce a game every 5 years for the sake of maintaining the license.
Well,
keep the trademark.
Is it Hasbro, Mattel? Someone will own it from the board game side of things. Yeah. So it might be a deal similar to that. So interesting stuff, exciting things for all the new games. Some other news did come out of it that wasn't kind of like game rollout necessarily. The next story on our doc this week, story number 2, is Skull and Bones, the much-awaited video game that was revealed back in 2017, now, gentlemen, has been delayed.
Yep.
No surprise.
Washed away with the tide.
Washed away, indeed. It's been pushed back now to the financial year 2022 to 2023, so they've put it back in the oven for a little bit longer now. Again, no confirmed announcement for Stadia, but again, the fact that it's Ubisoft and it's so far out, you would imagine, unless something drastically went wrong, this again would probably come day and date to Stadia, I would imagine. You've got to imagine another year of this relationship, it's getting bigger and better. And Ubisoft, if they've brought all the bigger AAA titles that have came out, like Richie said, last year into this year, this seems like a shoe-in. So we'll keep reporting this. Not that we really know much more about it.
Yeah, I'd love to. I want to see like a no-clip documentary on Skull and Bones when it comes out and go, because I mean we're talking literally the earliest this game will come out is about a year from now.
Yeah, and even then, because we've theorized before. It's essentially they took the idea of Black Flag because Black Flag did so well. The problem with Black Flag now is it came out that long ago. I feel like people are starting to forget or not care longer about the pirate style game. And then they announced it was online multiplayer, and I think that got a bit of a backlash where people were thinking, I kind of just wanted a single player pirate game, like similar to Black Flag. And then they said, I think when the first or the second delay, they said the scope had got so big they wanted to work on it a little bit longer. And now they've just came out and said, we're going to batten down the hatches and push it back again.
They've realised it's not just as simple as as calling your main character Kenwood Edway.
You can't just tweak it a little bit.
You can't just tweak it. You got to change some things as well.
It might be a strategic decision. Maybe they've pushed it back to the point where if it was aimed at last generation consoles, like that's not going to work anymore. We need to go for the next generation. So it might be just. Let's put another year in the oven and just do a PS5, Xbox Series X, Stadia, Luna, PC release. Yeah, and forget
Interesting. It's a weird one. I kind of my hype for a pirate game is very, very high because Black Flag was awesome. Who doesn't like pirates? Realistically, it could do some interesting things. The online, ever persistent world, similar to Sea of Thieves, kind of does have me a bit wary about it on that front. I don't know if that's really my bag. We've spoke before, I think, us three as gamers, we don't have the time in our lives for ever persistent worlds to live in, unfortunately, as much as we'd love to. So, cards on the table, or hands on deck, gentlemen. Which comes first? Black Flag to Stadia, or Skull and Bones?
Oh, Black Flag easy.
Black Flag, definitely.
Black Flag, I'd expect Black Flag this year, to be honest.
Okay,
it's not that much of a stretch, really, considering we got Syndicate and Unity last year.
That is true.
And we had that little image leak from the search bar, so,
Yeah. True, very true. So moving on from Skull and Bones then, story number 3 from the Ubisoft rollout is they've received a little bit of a backlash this past week or so regarding their future plans for video games. So they did come out and say that they were making a switch towards free-to-play games, which I guess Skull and Bones may fall into that bracket now when it does finally arrive on our shores.
Maybe this is why Skull and Bones being pushed back. Maybe this is going to be one of the new flagships rather than just a game.
Another ship reference.
Exactly, yeah. As many we can get in. So, speaking to investors, Ubisoft financial boss Frederic Duguay said the company's focus on releasing 3 to 4 big budget games per year was no longer a proper indication of their value creation dynamics. Or in layman's terms, Ubisoft wants its profits to grow by making money from different things. And it's obviously looked to the likes of Activision and what they've done with Warzone. They're still able to get out an annualized Call of Duty game, but then on the other side of the coin, make millions from an ever-present version of that game.
I think what they're trying to do, the way I read into this, is they're trying to maximize the potential of Ubisoft Plus. I think that's what they're going to go for. They're going to go for those sort of arrangements, like I mentioned before with Siege, with sort of like, giving everybody access to everything, and start implementing that into future titles as well. So let's say with Riders Republic, with Ubisoft Plus, you might get access to all the different range of vehicles or characters and so on, customization options. With Skull and Bones, you might get all these customization options for your ships and stuff like that too. I just think that's what they want to do. They want to try to maximize that monthly fee where people are constantly paying money rather than buying one-off titles.
Yeah, that's the thing with one-off titles. You'll have a massive spike in your income for around that a month or two after it comes out, and then it'll plateau.
Yeah.
Which is, that must be horrendous for accountants to deal with. Where you're still going to have them spikes, but with the more free-play model, that income is more stabilized at a higher level. That base level is increased.
Yeah. It's kind of the way the market's just evolved over the last generation with the rise of free to play. It's almost like companies, you have the mobile industry did that race to the bottom. Having a mobile game that was like £4 or £5 wasn't good enough. It had to be under that 99p 99 cents banner or free, and then you made it back on microtransactions, and some would say it totally killed the mobile industry.
In hindsight, I think it's a shame for the mobile industry because they were bringing out games that were £5-6, but the quality was terrible on them in the early days. So then people go, it's not worth the money. So then they found in the microtransaction model bringing out these crap games for free.
Yeah.
But then now there is good games out there in the mobile space, which are now bundled in with all the crap.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic, but I think for Ubisoft, what you said there, Tom, I think they're getting the most value out of their IP, and Ubisoft have some stellar IP under their umbrella, so it makes sense as a business they would look towards that. The more we talk about this, I'm just getting the vibe that Ubisoft are essentially creating their own Game Pass.
Yeah. That's exactly what Ubisoft Plus feels like to me.
And you're totally right, with all the DLC being included, that's such good value. Why would you drop? I think you as well, Richie, I've had a bit of a dilemma deciding on buying PlayStation games for the first time in my life, as an adult, because that £70 mark, I am now starting to think, is that worth my money right now, or could I be patient and pick it up in a few months' time for half price or even cheaper, arguably? Because that's a big jump up for just like every other month. If I want to play 2 games this month, that's like £140 just to play 2 games, whereas alternatively, a £10 subscription could net me the same return of like hours of games played, arguably. So the balance is tipping.
I'm seeing it as well. It's like, I don't think I'll be buying a Ubisoft game anytime soon because I'm going to wait for Ubisoft Plus. In fact, I have a PlayStation. If I really wanted to play a Ubisoft game and it was on Ubisoft Plus, I could just do that anyway, even though it's not on Stadia yet. So it's like, well, why would I fork out 60 quid for a game when I can play the game for a tenner?
Yeah. And that's, again, if we talk about cutting out the middleman, Ubisoft, he's all of our games, he's all the season content, he's all the DLC. How much is Ubisoft Plus, guys? Is it like £12.99 in the UK?
That's probably it probably translates around the 10 to 12 mark.
Yeah. So that much, or how much is the like Valhalla Gold Premium Deluxe Super Get Everything Edition? Is like £100, right? Yeah, probably reduced now, but so like that
75 plus.
That's like just over a tenner or £100 to play. Like that's the value. Again, like as such a lover of like physical media and owning it, even though I'm a big Stadia fan, ironically, I think that the tides are changing. Without throwing another Skull and Bones reference in there, tides are turning.
That's the thing. Going all the way back to the origins of the podcast, that was the thing for me. Is like I've typically bought physical media for platforms because it's cheaper. That was always my main reasons. Like if I can get a disc like 3 months after for like 20 quid less, I'll buy the disc. because it's just being a smart consumer.
Mm-hmm.
But with things like moving more to digital platforms and cloud streaming, it's like when I was investing in Stadia, like I kind of just put that aside. Like, yeah, this is going to change whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
I might as well accept that change and just embrace it.
Yeah.
And things like Ubisoft Plus, I do think are the way forward. That is the way the industry is going.
Yeah. I honestly think it is, and we've seen it. We've said since like episode 1 that the music industry fell to this, the television industry fell to this. Lockdowns forced the movie industry to change this. Like, look at how many big movie titles have now released on like HBO Max and stuff, and Disney Plus with like premium access day one of release. I think video games, with the rise of Game Pass and then all the stories we've got now around this, I think it will be a matter of time before we'll just have a subscription. And Stadia gives us that benefit tenfold because it's no downloads, no updates, no waiting. It's just click, play, boom, you're in for your 12 quid.
Yeah.
For the first time ever, the two major flagship consoles, the PlayStation and the Xbox, have brought out 2 SKUs immediately. Both of them have a disc-free version.
Mm-hmm. That is another good point as well. So, Ubisoft...
PC gaming's been there for a long time anyway, so it's like...
Times are changing. And Ubisoft did come out and clarify, so they didn't get too much of a backlash. They did clarify, saying, our intention is to deliver a diverse lineup of games that players will love across all platforms. We're excited to be investing more in free-to-play experiences. However, we want to clarify that this does not mean we're reducing our AAA offering. Our aim is to continue delivering premium experiences such as Far Cry 6, Rainbow Six Quarantine, still calling it Quarantine, even though we thought they may have changed that name. We'll see. Riders Republic and Skull and Bones, to name a few, while expanding on our free-to-play portfolio. Again, I can't see Far Cry entries going anywhere. I can't see Assassin's Creed entries going anywhere.
They're too popular.
Exactly. So, I never really read much into this, but I know they did get a bit of a backlash. So much so they've had to come out and clarify they're not changing everything. But
you mentioning Assassin's Creed at one point was the poster child for video games being annualized when they shouldn't have been annualized, and through things like Unity and especially Unity and Syndicate got quite a bit of backlash because they came out as kind of broken in certain platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So having a more free-to-play games that are going, and Ubisoft Plus, these sort of financial models that keep their finances taking over, can mean that actually the developers can take more time over their AAA games because they're not as reliant on their income.
Yeah.
So they got more time working it. So this actually may lead us. You might get less big AAA games from Ubisoft, but they might be to a higher quality. So things like you look at Valhalla, great games, and the character model's a bit shoddy. That stuff might disappear. Very true.
A good reflection of that, actually, Richie, good point, is EA. EA actively said that the EA original games, like the recent It Takes Two from Joseph Fares, they came out and said that because of the money that we get from FIFA's Ultimate Team and the FUT cards and Apex Legends and that kind of stuff, all the cosmetics DLC, because of that constant influx of cash, that affords us to look at making more creative, smaller projects like It Takes Two and these indie partnerships that they do. So, a constant flow from these titles could benefit.
Yeah, if you think of like EA Play, if like It Takes Two, that game might not be very profitable on its own, but adds value when it's bundled into the rest of their offering.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You're totally right. Wonderful stuff. Final story then from the Ubisoft front. They have came out and officially also announced that Ubisoft Originals, which we did clock last week as part of the Division Heartland announcement. It was on there like a little Netflix signal underneath, a Ubisoft Original, which I think led some speculation to thinking like, is this a TV spin-off? What is this? But they've just came out and clarified that any game that's going to be Ubisoft kind of exclusive in-house is now going to be listed as a Ubisoft original title. Similar to how Netflix and Amazon and stuff make their content. This, gentleman, makes me think, we're talking about libraries, and you just mentioned there, Richie, having like smaller interstitial content. I can see Ubisoft reaching out and maybe doing some second-party publishing deals now. And they'll license their own stuff as original, and then the other smaller content maybe with other studios as whatever that title ends up being.
I think this just ties in strongly to what everything we've just been saying. I think this is Ubisoft pushing the Ubisoft brand a bit harder than just like the Assassin's Creed brand or the Skull and Bones brand or the Rainbow Six, the Tom Clancy brand. They're pushing the Ubisoft brand so people are aware that these games are Ubisoft games. So that's because you might be playing Rainbow Six Siege and not really know it's a Ubisoft title if you just clicking through the opening credits.
Particularly if you're a more casual player.
It's just getting that drilled into people's minds. So it's like, basically, Ubisoft becomes synonymous with quality, and
I guess that does come from like a financial earnings and sort of report to stakeholders. Really, is they want to try to see the value of the brand, not the IP that is associated with the brand, but the brand overall, because that's what people have invested in. So at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. It's like pushing that. It's like you say, Chris, too, with the Ubisoft original label. You see it on a Netflix original and so on. There, we're starting to move away from these are my things, and it's more like this is what I've created. This is our stuff. You know that if you buy something from Ubisoft, a Ubisoft original, this is what you can expect to get as part of that. And I think again, everything you can start to see, it's actually this whole financial earnings is actually very sort of enlightening in a way. It's given us a good glimpse at what Ubisoft are actually looking for here, I think. And what we're really starting to see is everything starting to come together. I see Ubisoft now as not being synonymous with any particular platform, but they just want to stand independent of everything and provide their own way forwards. Like you say, it's almost like having a service like Netflix or a service like Stadia, but Ubisoft want to have their own service. It's just available on a multitude of different platforms.
Yeah, I think Ubisoft has been like that for a little while. I think that's why we got so much on Stadia. Is like, they just went, look, we're going to make the games and we're just going to put them everywhere. We don't care where you play them. We don't care where you buy them. We're just, there you go.
Big stuff. Yeah. I think Ubisoft making some clever moves right now, and they're definitely future-proofing themselves. Yeah. And I think we've seen EA kind of do it with partnering with Game Pass and the EA Play subscription, and I think, again, you'd like to think, fingers crossed, EA are looking at Stadia as an option, saying, look, we don't need to be beholden to these £500 consoles and this console cycle. If FIFA and all of our games do so well, why not just put them in the cloud and have them ever present on devices everybody already owns? Because the next FIFA iteration, they're going to be waiting on people buying the next consoles to buy it on PS5. And that's why they still make last-gen versions, because they don't want to leave that market behind. Cloud gaming allows them to not require that because it's always ever present, regardless of the tech that the consumers are running it on. So
he's a little secret about EA Play and Ubisoft Plus. You buy a game or get access to a game through that service, that money's going to EA and Ubisoft. That's not going to Sony. Sony not getting as much of a cut there. They're not getting their 30% of the sale.
So yeah,
it's back to the Epic and Apple deal.
There'll be probably a bespoke deal to have that service on the platform.
Yes,
but yeah, they're not. If you buy Assassin's Creed that from like EA Play, from Ubisoft directly, that money's going to Ubisoft.
So interesting things, but it's all good news for us as Stadia players, I think, because it just puts them in a better position, and it does make you think a little bit more to back in February when they were breaking down the decisions to close their internal studios, which again we're probably going to touch on a little bit because of the shitty journalists out there, but the money is definitely probably better spent maybe investing in business partners right now, as a platform rather than focusing on your own stuff.
And when Stadia got a bigger user base and they start getting some more money in the bank, they could reopen the studios. Just because they close them now doesn't mean they're closed forever. Very
true. So then, speaking of, moving on to next story, away from Ubisoft a little bit, Nate Ahearn, who works at Stadia, he's came out and I think it's been a while since we've heard anything from anyone actually at Stadia, other than the blogs and the news that happened, unfortunately, back in February, and all of the websites picking up on little threadbare stories. He's came out and just clarified that Stadia is alive and well. And he gave an interview to gamesindustry.biz. You can head over there and find out the article. Just clarified that, it's alive and well. Quote, we're well on our way to over 100 new games launching on Stadia in 2021. And we're continuing to make Stadia a great place to play games on devices you already own. I tell any non-believers to take notice of how we're continuing to put our words into action as we grow the Stadia Makers program and partner with AAA studios like Capcom, EA, Square Enix, Ubisoft, and others. We're pressing for more. When pressed for more information, he said again, focus on delivering value for our partners and on behalf of our players. he went on a little bit more to talk about the Pro subscription, Resident Evil, Jedi Fallen Order landing and stuff. And again, it wasn't a deep, in-depth interview. They did try and push him a little bit more to talk about the departures that recently happened, which, again, it's a non-starter. I'd imagine he's not there to talk about that. It's just bringing up old stories. But the bit I wanted to touch on, gentlemen, within this is it's great to see Nate out there talking about Stadia with the departure of John Justice. I, for one, feel like Stadia needs that front woman, that person to come out and actively speak on behalf of the brand, because we just don't see it. We get the community blog posts, and we know Grace and Chris do their work out there, but Phil Harrison's been quiet. I think a couple of weeks ago he said he hasn't tweeted since like March, and even that was just a retweet. That it needs a human face for the brand, like Phil Spencer is for Xbox. I think it needs something like that, and Nate could be that person. But obviously, him coming out and saying alive and well, we should probably touch on that. Then led to all of the amazing journalists out there in the world jumping onto the story of, again, re-bringing up news from February now, almost 4 months ago, to rehash it. And I think the one probably we want to focus on was the Kotaku article, right, gentlemen?
Ooh. Yeah. That's my thought in a nutshell right there. It's just...
Yeah,
Come
so
on.
we don't really talk about these stories that much because they're not news. But again, I think it's getting that bubbling point where I wanted to personally talk about how shit some of the journalists are out there. They literally take anything and twist it. And I know people in the Stadia community, they get rightly so defensive about it, and they try and correct people. It's not really worth your time on the internet, personally, I think, to get into that kind of thing, because it just ends up going in the black hole void that is Twitter or Facebook or the internet. But Kotaku's article, I'd say go read it, but it's not really much of a read. There's very little journalistic research done whatsoever. Yeah. But just wanted to start with the headline, gentlemen. Google says everything at Stadia is fine as the water reaches their noses. And then the article basically briefly mentions Nate's interview with GamesIndustry.biz, but then likes to bring up the shutting down of studios, people leaving the company. Again, it quotes things like Cyberpunk and Resident Evil as titles, but then it doesn't really say that that's good for Stadia. It uses that as an opportunity to bring up that Stadia. Google paid millions of dollars to bring the games to their platform, which we know last week we covered Epic paying tens of millions of dollars to bring games to their platform, but it's a problem for Stadia because apparently it's a sinking ship. And he references the Google graveyard again, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm just getting tired of these journalists doing lazy ass work.
For me, this reads as they've come up with the headline, then wrote the story to meet the headline, rather than doing the investigation, getting the information, and writing an article about the information they found. I think for me, it's journalism done such in a lazy fashion, done backwards. They've not. There's nothing new in this article. It's an opinion. It's all it is an opinion piece, and they're just taking a couple of stories and smashing them together that they're not. Mm-hmm. They're not fixed. And we've talked to death about Stadia Games and Entertainment's closures and how actually we don't think it's like the end of Stadia, and we think it's probably a smarter decision that they're putting their money into other things to get to grow the platform rather than spending all their money developing a game which may fail.
Yeah. I think when we look at these articles, most of these articles are written by, any Joe or Sally who wants to be a journalist, basically. Yeah. Anybody can sit there and write a trash piece about anything, really, and for some reason it gets published these days. I mean, if you look at the Kotaku article right now, the person who writes it, their title is they're a weekend writer over at Kotaku. So I mean, what is a weekend writer? It's like the old Mace Windu quote, isn't it? Really, of like, we grant you the title of writer, but you do not sit on the console.
Kotaku weekend editor is his official title. So weekend is good as part-time traffic lights, in my opinion.
Day job.
The thing I don't get is it's clear this is just a clickbaity article to satisfy people who just revel in hating Stadia for. But I don't get that. If you're not interested in the platform, I don't think I'll ever fully get my head around it. It's like, if you're not interested in the platform, I would just then be apathetic towards it because I don't care about it. So I don't know who this sort of article is servicing, but apparently there's plenty of people on the internet who must love these sort of articles because they keep publishing them,
Yeah.
So they're making money.
Well,
I mean,
misery loves company, right? So
Yeah.
evidently all these journalists jump on it because they can't
It's
be
just-
asked to do any research or test it out
It's
themselves.
a shame to see like an institution like Kotaku, who I used to actually really read a lot of and respect, that just seemed to have went downhill.
Yeah.
A lot.
It's
Of
so
course, like I'm even talking before Stadia. It's just not this. Is not just a Stadia thing. This is not me being a Stadia fanboy at the moment. It's just like
there's loads of
I
stuff.
despise bad journalism. I really do, because journalism is so important.
Yeah, it really is, especially in a free world with free speech. But breaking down a couple more bullet points before we move on from this sour story. But during the interview, he says that the company don't disclose numbers. Guess what? Neither did Microsoft. Never told us how many Xboxes they sold last generation at all to compete with against the PS4. We just knew they were in last place behind the Switch and PS4. Moving on, he talks about, like I said, the big games, Cyberpunk and Assassin's Creed. Doesn't bring up the story about how fucking good Cyberpunk was on Stadia compared to other consoles. Still can't buy it on PS4, by the way, guys, digitally. Not a thing, like 4 or 5 months later.
Yeah, but that's
too positive.
A loss for CD Projekt Red, not a win for Stadia, though.
Still,
Okay.
not mentioned in here. Mentions the Epic Apple lawsuit I mentioned with the prices they paid. And then finally, mentioned within the article again, at the Epic versus Apple court trial, lawyers and witnesses seemed unable to clearly answer the question whether Google Stadia was still operating or not. Guess what? Because it's a jury of random members of the public. They also had to get Tim Sweeney to point out what a PlayStation was. This is a guy who made his millions selling games on the platform. They brought one out and made him point at it to clarify. So again,
this is a court case between Epic and Apple.
Nothing to do,
Stadia,
nothing
not
to do
Stadia
with it.
experts.
And then he wraps up his part-time weekend editorial by saying, while Google Stadia claims it's alive and well, I'd start digging out a spot in the large and growing Google graveyard, because I don't think it's long for this world. But hey, as it sinks beneath the waves, at least not that many people will drown.
His career will.
Well,
once they don't need someone to take the flak for Stadia hit pieces,
I just think I don't know. I'd like to
trip into your own grave.
I'd like to think journalists just had a bit more integrity when they come to writing their pieces, and evidently it's not alive and well at Kotaku right now.
We could spend hours talking about it, but I think sometimes institutions start off with the best ideas, and the management changes, things change behind the scenes, the controlling parties take over, and then it all becomes all about the money. And if something sells, then unfortunately, I think integrity can go out the window.
Clickety clickbait. But anyway,
I actually feel sorry for young journalists trying to get a foothold, because sometimes they end up writing stories that we're being harsh on this guy. He might not even agree with this article. This might literally just be something he has to do to put food on his table.
Well, again, if he's a weekend editor, you'd like to think he's got another job during the week. That hopefully,
weekend editor because he's trying to get a staff job. You don't know, so
we'll see. But either way, we'll move on from that one. Go check it out if you want to. His name's in the article. Do what you need to, Stadia community. But let's move on to some exciting news that happened this week. Back to the games. Destiny 2 had crossplay accidentally switched on by Bungie this weekend. We saw it circulating in the Twitter sphere that gamers were suddenly able to play with Xbox, PlayStation, PC counterparts. And I saw a couple of screenshots of people saying they were in the game. I saw people on Xbox and stuff saying that they were playing with Stadia players, because you could see the little hashtag, the numbers next to their name. Total accident, guys. It was Bungie came out and said they said it was an unintended sneak peek at crossplay, and it's still officially on the way and it's in development, but it will be disabled again in the coming days. Obviously, our friends over at Stadia Source picked up on this, and a couple of people got out there and enjoyed what little time they seem to have playing crossplay. But this goes back to our Ubisoft conversation, I guess, and Destiny 2, obviously free to play on Stadia right now, but crossplay is huge for a new platform like Stadia and Amazon Luna and anyone else who's trying to build that online player base. This just helps tenfold, and it's great to see that Destiny 2 evidently would seem not too far away.
I just think like once crossplay is fully enabled, like you get to a situation where, let's just say you are a traveling person for business, and you know all of your friends play on Xbox or they play on PlayStation. You want to jump in for a quick game of Destiny. That's where like Stadia once again becomes so useful, because you don't want to take your Xbox or your PlayStation away with you. You could just take a Chromecast or your phone.
It unshackles the potential of Stadia. At the moment, one of the biggest drawbacks of Stadia is, unfortunately, the multiplayer player base.
Yeah.
Crossplay resolves that issue instantly. But what they've done here is, I think they've accidentally, because there's rumours that actually a data mine has found out the crossplay beta is on its way. So I think whoever's been like working behind the scenes to set that up, they accidentally hit the switch to go turn it on, and they probably went in terms of, oh my god, this went live. Like, and someone's went, hang on a second, let's just let them have it for a couple of days, and we can do this as a pre-beta test. We can just put an article like, oh no, we messed up, it wasn't meant to go live, but you can have it for a couple of days, and if it's buggy and stuff, no one's gonna like care too much because it's not meant to be out yet.
Yeah.
So
we're dealing with some
very useful data. They can get very useful data out of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And see if no one picked up on it, how long it could have just went on for. Surprise! It's actually been there for 7 months now, and no one's noticed it.
I think a game like Destiny 2 is going to be pretty obvious.
Oh yeah,
that game is like within minutes. Probably journalists are writing the article.
Yeah, Zach might have to do some work during the week.
Yeah.
But we should point out as well the kind of the marketing lens in which crossplay brings, because it, like you said, Tom, it opens the platform up to people who will be maybe more casual players, or they commit to one particular game, but it gives them an outlet to play it elsewhere. If you're a hardcore Destiny player, like we have a few friends, Richie, who've put over 3,000, 4,000 hours a year into these titles, the fact that you can then play that on your lunch break or when your living room TV isn't accessible, but with your same crossplay game files, that's huge. And our friend who played it actually texted me over the weekend and said, crossplay is available apparently for between Stadia thingy, and that's someone who isn't in the Stadia ecosystem. So if that's one individual plays Destiny, take that and apply it to all the Ubisoft titles, all the other games, and it just creates that understanding that I can play my save file in other places, and that's free marketing as far as Stadia is concerned.
For me, this goes back to what we've said in the past about some gamers who a single game is the hobby, where I think cloud gaming is perfect for these single game hobbyists, where if the only game you're interested in playing is Destiny 2, do you want to fork out for, 500 quid every maybe 5-6 years for a new console when you could just not? Like literally, that's it. You don't buy a controller every time your controller dies. Yeah.
Ain't done Stadia to give another Premier Edition away once a year, so if your controller's on its way out, you're probably due a free one some point in the next few months.
I haven't played a Resident Evil game in a while. Yep, there's another Premier Edition and another Chromecast for a different TV in my house.
Yeah, free Premier Edition with Ubisoft 50th anniversary. You know.
While we're on that, what are your plans for your Premier Editions?
My controller is in use. As I said before, I'm keeping my Founders in my office and get my two white ones downstairs. But the Chromecast is just in the box.
Tom?
I might upgrade a family member or something at some point.
I've got one so I gave one away to a family friend who helped us out with some insurance deals lately, which was pretty good because we needed home insurance. And he was really grateful for that. The other one, I'm thinking I may either do one of two things. I may give it away as a prize at school to one of the students, because let's be honest, they probably just want to trash talk it based on all of the articles that are out there anyway. Maybe that might put out a good word out in there. Alternatively, I was thinking of possibly keeping it for later on, depending on what happens in the future with Stadia and with future iterations of Chromecast and controllers, keeping it for my son as well. So we'll see what happens.
Wonderful. Mine's not even opened yet. I'm finally seeing it's just in case my current controllers die a death maybe in the future, that I'll just have a backup that I don't need to buy when the time comes. So we shall see. I know PlayStation 5 announced 2 new controllers, finally a black one and a crimson red this week, and I'm telling myself I don't need it, but I kind of want it.
The red looks pretty slick, to be honest.
I kind of like the black one as well still.
Really? I don't like the black one.
I don't like the red one.
But maybe more colours in the future as these Premier Editions do wind down. We should probably mention, talking about crossplay as well, Dirt 5 announced this week. Of course, Codemasters, now recently acquired by EA. They did come out and clarify that cross-platform matchmaking is coming to Dirt 5. So again, another title getting kind of post-launch support that benefits Stadia by bringing that crossplay along to it. I think in the next 5 or so years, crossplay is probably just going to be the norm, right, for any online multiplayer game.
Yeah, I think it's one of them games we want it.
Yeah.
Because what we want to do is be able to play with our friends regardless of what platform we're on. I think game developers want it as well, because then you're not fracturing your user base.
Yeah, it's less
And
code.
especially as more
stuff, I
platforms
imagine.
come in the market, that means you're fracturing it into even more sections. Like, it's only the only people who don't want it is probably PlayStation, because they have such a command of the gaming industry at the moment.
Well, that was the interesting thing in the Epic story. I think it was Gio Corsi, who used to work at PlayStation. I don't think he's there anymore. He was quoted as saying, back in the day when Epic and Fortnite were having that whole crossplay initiative thing, and PlayStation held out firm as long as they could, saying we don't need this. I think he was quoted as saying in one of the emails, nobody at PlayStation can explain how this benefits us, like being PlayStation their brand. And he's totally right. Is the market leader, is the front runner, it does nothing but pull your player base potentially away from PlayStation if you can play on mobile, Xbox, Switch, wherever else. So it makes sense, but I think the long game, you have to embrace it, otherwise it gets too bitter.
The way it does impact PlayStation is it could be damaging the reputation to hold out for too long, as everyone else in the gaming industry is all playing nice together, and then Sony's off to the side. That could have long-term implications, which is probably why they eventually caved and started allowing it.
Does more brand damage than it does actually. It would cost more in the long run to get that positive marketing back than it would to just undermine it, because it only takes one thing, right, to totally pull the rug out from under.
Well, if you look at Microsoft are then pulling in the PC audience and the Xbox audience together, and then will immediately dwarf PlayStation.
Interesting things.
So there you go.
But crossplay is certainly coming from the newly acquired game by EA, of course. And segueing from EA, we slip into the next story, which is EA Play Live showcase coming in July. So, funnily enough, they're not going to be at E3. They're going to sidestep it by a few weeks and show up with another EA Play Live event, of course. We covered it on the channel last year, so we'll no doubt be overviewing it this year too. So keep your eyes on our channel for that content. But I wanted to kind of throw it out to you guys with what you really expect to see from EA, because other than their annualized franchise, we know Battlefield 6 is no doubt, this is where they're going to really showcase everything we need to know about that. Outside of FIFA and stuff,
to open the show.
But what else, guys? What are you expecting from EA this year, this summer showcase?
Surely we get
something like Codemasters in there, I reckon.
Okay.
Like a formal announcement. I know they have formally announced it, but like on a big stage.
Do you think we get our first look at Jedi Fallen Order 2?
Ooh, that would be a good one. Open with Battlefield, close with Jedi Fallen Order 2.
Perhaps. Because I feel like we might be at the point, just a tease at this point. Nothing more than that, just a logo, perhaps.
A lightsaber ignites, and then the logo comes.
Maybe like Cal voiceover or something, or something like that. Yeah, that's what I'd like to see. Nothing. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. It just has to be confirmation. The game is coming. Here's the title art, like the logo for the game, and just a voice.
What about Dragon Age? When's Dragon Age meant to come out?
Oh, that's a good shout.
They did tease it last year, right? They closed on a Dragon Age teaser with the guy approaching like the statue or something, if I remember.
It feels about right to start giving us a date for that. Not probably not it's coming out in June 2022, but it's probably just like coming soon, coming 2022, that sort of thing.
Because BioWare will be riding a wave of positivity after the Mass Effect Legendary just launched this past weekend. Not coming to Stadia, evidently, guys. We thought there might have been a stealth drop. There wasn't. But so Dragon Age, Battlefield 6, Jedi Fallen Order. I can't imagine that's that far off, because they didn't do any DLC for it. So Respawn must have been heavy working on the sequel immediately, because it was so successful, Game of the Year award winning and such. You got to imagine they were straight working away, and it's been 2019 did it come out?
I kind of wouldn't think Jedi Fallen Order and Dragon Age 4's release date's going to be somehow linked together. So if one's this year, the other won't be. Because I think they feel like the next big titles. Because it was 2018 the first time we heard about Dragon Age 4.
I feel Jedi Fallen Order 2 will be I'm expecting possibly a holiday 2022 release. I don't think it'll be this year. I think it'll be next year. So we could be due something for that with Dragon Age potentially.
May the 4th, 2022.
I think it's going to be out this Christmas.
Really? That's very soon. That's only a 2-year difference.
You've got to remember how quick they actually announced the game and then put it out. like the turnaround they had it was announced at that E3 with that really bad poor presentation where it was like, oh, we've got a logo and that's all it showed you, and then it was out the following year. They've got the engine, and let's face it, EA 10 games around annually.
I mean, it's true, but at the same time, Jedi Fallen Order is now such a staple Star Wars. Like, it's just it has to be done right. It has to be done right, and I feel like a 3-year cycle is good. I feel 2 is rushing it.
I think I'm gonna go with you, Chris, and I think Jedi Fallen Order might be this year and Dragon Age next year. Reason I'm thinking that is, I think they're going to give BioWare as much time as they possibly can for Dragon Age 4, because I don't think BioWare can survive another miss.
All right.
I mean, arguably, the Mass Effect remasters are a hit. It's quite early to tell at the moment, but that's a remaster of a game that we knew were good anyway.
Yeah.
But they haven't, basically, since you can make a strong argument that since Mass Effect 3, they haven't had a good hit.
True.
Dragon Age 3 maybe, but
it's a while ago now.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. We'll find out. Obviously, we're going to have the next FIFA iteration announcement. Hopefully, come to Stadia day and date. We're going to have the Madden announcements. They've got Battlefield coming out at the end of this year, so the deck's definitely stacked for EA. It just depends if they want that single player one to come out, and I could see something like November 29th this year. Star Wars. Yeah. When is Star Wars Celebration? It's in the summer, right? Because they do May the 4th, and they have it's kind of around E3. It's kind of around E3 because we don't know anything about the Star Wars movies yet either for the year. All we've really got is Bad Batch. That's all. That's great, but it's out now. But we don't really know what the next big Star Wars thing is. So we digress. But yeah, EA Play Live, July 22nd, 2021. Check it out. We'll no doubt be covering
Star Wars
it.
Celebration is August the 18th, so it's entirely possible we'll get a tease for Jedi Fallen Order at this event, and then more coming at Star Wars Celebration. Interesting stuff.
Right then, gentlemen, let's round out the news for the week with some game updates and such. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Wrath of the Druids, DLC that was delayed. It's finally out now. Takes place in Ireland. And there's some great reviews of that. It's getting really, really positive feedback. There's one particular review from thegamer.com, which I found really interesting just because it was reviewed by someone who's Irish, and their take on it, and they're really deep in the lore and the history of their country and their heritage and stuff. So it was really interesting to see from a cultural standpoint how they reflected on Wrath of the Druids and how it brings in their kind of history to it all. And apparently it's fantastic. The story, the arc. Yeah, you get to go to Dublin as well and see that, how it looked back in ye old days. And overall, just really, really positive. And as someone who finished Valhalla a good while ago now and has the season pass, it's there for me. So I'm really keen to just get back into it once I've wrapped up on Watch Dogs Legion. I guess I want to throw it over to you, Tom, as someone who's still hours and hours deep into Valhalla at this point. Yeah. How are you feeling with this? Are you one of those who jumps in early to the side content, or do you like to finish the main thing and then pigeonhole it for later?
It's a good shout, really, because I usually, with things like this, I know I did with Odyssey, I didn't jump into the Fate of Atlantis stuff until after I'd finished the main story. So I think I'm probably going to do the same thing with this as well, get the main story out of the way and then dive into Wrath of the Druids. Like I've mentioned before, I noticed quite some time ago that the Outpost was already available in Ravensthorpe, so it's already there ready to go. I'm going to make a point of avoiding speaking to the guy first until I am happy that I've wrapped as much as I want up, really. I always see DLC as being, for me personally, I deal with it as a tag-along after the main story. I never try to, interweave it into it. But some of the stuff that's dropped as part of the DLC prior to this, like the Berserker updates and stuff like that, they've just sort of already been there for me when I started the game, so I just took it as it was and just ran with it. So if you're new to the game, then sure, by all means, if you come across it, go and do it. But for me, I'm just going to wait till the end of the game at this point.
Good stuff. A couple of points I'll pick out, though, Tom, to look forward to. You can summon an Irish wolfhound.
You can,
to help you. There are boar druids, which are apparently a particular pain in the ass. They've added some new combat and level designs, some new styles of forts to there, so it adds a bit more to the stealth approach, if that's your play style. And a couple of landmarks, puzzles, story, but Yeah, they do a really good job, Ubisoft, actually, of implementing the DLC with almost like a launch mission to tease you into thinking, look, if you enjoy this type of game or you're after more story content, do the trial mission. If you find it, here's the link to the season pass. Buy it now. But yeah, I've had my break. I've been playing Watch Dogs Legion, and Valhalla's infinitely a better game. So I'm looking forward to diving back into it. Hopefully before something new comes along. I do have Mass Effect, Richie. It came on Friday, so like you, I'm sat kind of thinking, right, I need to finish off Watch Dogs before I commit to a whole new entry.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing Valhalla Druid's not for you. You're not one for DLC. You usually go jumping back in after the fact.
No, when I was finished Valhalla, I felt I was done with Valhalla. It was time to move on. But for me, when I spend over 100 hours in a game, I rarely want more. Like, I'm usually good at that point. Like, I want to move on. So.
Well, speaking of moving on, let's jump into the next story then. We've got a couple of announcements. We didn't get a blog this past Thursday. We got one on Friday as well. There now seems to be no consistency with what dates we get these new story drops. It's just kind of if and when the button goes live. Tom, this one's definitely for you. We are getting, as part of the community blog, the CUNY little bogling came back out of his hole. There was some more news. I need a graphic of like that little Stadia bogling now. It needs to be like Stadia purple and orange maybe in like skin tone. And his tongue, when his tongue comes out to grab you, it's got the Stadia S right at the very end of it, right at the screen. It's just like that splash screen. That needs to be a thing. Stadia bogling. So as part of the Stadia boggling post, we got Shantae and the Pirate's Curse is coming to Stadia, of course. Another entry in the Shantae series, which I know you're a huge fan of, Tom. Where does Pirate's Curse fit into the Shantae cinematic universe of games, do we know?
So this would be the sequel to the remastered game that we got quite recently. So after Half Genie Hero, we get Shantae the Pirate's Curse. Another one I'm really looking forward to. I'd be very interested to see if this is actually going to be of the same sort of remastered style rather than the older graphics of it. Because what we've got to remember is that the Shantae series is quite dated at this point, really. I mean, they came back out in the early 2010s, I would say, maybe even prior to that. And some of them, as you've seen, were even Game Boy Advance games. So that's how far back we're throwing it, really. But yeah, it's always good to get franchises like this on the platform again. We've seen from the likes of the team behind Steam, the SteamWorld franchise as well. They're going to be creating more games this year, which I'm hoping to see. When we start to get an established franchise on the platform, it's always nice to see that the full catalog of games does arrive eventually, because it's nice to have that for people who are fans of the games, just to be able to play through all of them, really.
Very true. So, in the description, embark on a swashbuckling adventure with Shantae, the hair-whipping half-genie. When she loses her magic, she must team up with her nemesis, the nefarious pirate Risky Boots, in order to save the sequin land from an evil curse. Again, new features, new puzzles, etc. like that. And, they haven't given a date. They said summer 2021, which for Stadia, with the first half of 2021, summer could range anywhere from March through to like September, October at this point. But I can't imagine with these type of smaller games that it's usually quite a quick turnaround from announcement to actual release. So that's exciting stuff. And then in amongst the blog post, we also got the Super Animal Crossing confirmation with, I kind of guess, a very good tidbit, guys, that it's coming free to Stadia. Not Stadia Pro, just straight to free to play, which correct me if I'm wrong, is this the first game to just straight out just be free? Destiny was, of course, Pro and then.
Yeah, they've always transitioned to free. They've not come out straight away as free.
And with crossplay,
this is going to be a Fortnite killer as well.
Oh, 100% straight away. I'm all over
it. What a bold call.
But interesting take. Modus Games, of course, big supporter of Stadia game from the indie front. We know it's a 64-player bit with, again, as I mentioned, cross-play support. So when this arrives on all platforms, the player base is going to be there. And I don't know whether this is Stadia testing the waters, maybe with a different approach, doing it free. If it gets any kind of traction like Fortnite or PUBG got, it could be huge. And again, the fact that you can now play it anywhere adds another element. But free.
I feel it's a game that kind of needs to be free to play in order to get people in the doors. Otherwise, people might go, even just like a £10 price point. People might go, oh, is it Whether I don't know, I might not. But if it's free to play, if you're interested in the game, you're going to try it.
Yeah.
So, and if, I'm guessing it's going to have things like battle passes and stuff included, so they'll make the money elsewhere. Like, Fortnite's free to play, so the model works.
True.
Does indeed. If the quality is there, Richie.
Yeah.
And final story of the week, speaking of if the quality is there, we got an ESRB rating for Blaze and the Monster Machines Axel City Races. It was covered by our friends over at Stadia Source. This game, gentlemen, could not even find a trailer for it. Could not even find a still image. I think it's a kids show. Again, don't have children. Tom will point all child-based point things towards you right now.
Yeah.
I like to know you nodded yes, as though even though your unborn child has yet to choose their television preferences, you're like, yep, it exists. I know this. I'm a parent to be. How do you know? How do you know this is a thing, Tom?
I actually picked it up from comments in the Stadia blog post of people saying, "Oh, my kids absolutely love this. They'll absolutely, yeah." It's one of those things, isn't it? Really, like it's a game like what have we got? We've got the Dragons game that's coming as well, plus some others. They elude my brain right now. Brain no work.
The Bogling's got you.
Yeah, we've got lots of games that are coming that are very much sort of targeted towards a younger audience as well. You know, probably your very early gamers, 6 to perhaps 10 years old, something like that. So yeah,
don't have a kart racer though on Stadia, so
nope.
Fills that niche gap. And again, we joke, but the reality is Stadia needs to appeal to mass market, and there is a huge audience of children out there who, don't get me wrong, I don't know about you, Tom, but you won't be buying your soon-to-be newborn a console for probably quite some time. I'd imagine. I'd imagine when they come and say, "Dad, can I have the new whatever it is?" That's a big decision to be made with the price of consoles rising. So Stadia does give that foot in the door entry level of gaming, because you see kids all the time with phones now from a young age, and it's the cheapest point of entry, and Stadia alleviates that. So yes. Don't think I'll be checking it out, if I'm honest. But if you do fancy it, go check out the Blaze and the Monster Machines Axel City Races when it does drop on Stadia. That's all the news stories we have for everyone this week. The Bogling's back in his cage. And we are wrapping up for episode 86, gentlemen. We've had crossplay, we've had Ubisoft talk, we've had new games, and we've had terrible journalism brought up in the show. And not from us three. From Kotaku.com. But that's it. That's all we have time for this week on episode 86 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast. Do remember to click like down below on the video, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell so you are kept in the loop with all things Sounds of Stadia, like our many live streams, Richie and Tom getting drunk playing 100 Days in their vineyard, myself and Richie jumping into the scary world of Resident Evil Village, which will be continuing later this week, so do keep it locked to the channel so you don't miss out on all those jump scares, and Ethan's poor hands being traumatized beyond all belief.
He's not much luck with his hands, is he really?
Oh no!
Capcom have got George Lucas working for them.
It's something crazy. And of course, we have our SideQuest episode that we'll be recording straight after this. Richie, what's our SideQuest mission for this week?
We're going to be talking about whether Stadia is classified as current gen or next gen.
Ooh, because
oh dear, we're going to knock some heads there.
We may quite do. And remember, you can get that episode. I suppose it's available through an app, maybe on your phone. That episode available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Pocket Casts, all those podcast platforms in the digital cloud. You can get that up to 6 days early on YouTube if you are a member of the channel. So if you want to support myself and the other two lovely gentlemen to my side here, that little bit more, help us bring you better Stadia content, do click join from below. You get loads of badges, loads of stickers, access to exclusive content that's available now, along with SideQuest, like some of our first looks. I checked out SpongeBob last week, gentlemen. Believe it or not. I don't know what led me to that all of a sudden, but I thought, I haven't played SpongeBob yet. I'm scared to death of Resident Evil, so I'm going to go for something a little bit lighter. What better than a yellow sponge and a starfish? Jumped into it. My first impressions look now available for members. Go check it out if you haven't done so already. But that's it. That's Stadia Stories of the Week. We'll see you next week for episode number 87. My name's been Chris.
I've been Tom.
I've been Richie.
We've been Sounds of Stadia. Have a great week, everybody. Game on. Goodbye.